Well, you're welcome to another Sunday kickback after the Premier League action, live and exclusive and off the ball and news talk. Stephen Doyle here, alongside former Republic of Ireland manager Brian Kerr. Brian, we just watched Chelsea taking a 1-0 victory against Leicester City at home. I suppose on the face of it and looking on paper, most people would have expected Chelsea to get the 3 points, but they made really hard work of it.
They did. Missed a penalty early in the game, 20 minutes into the game, which would have settled them and probably unsettled Leicester, given how they've been so brittle defensively. And I mean, already 8 times this season they've been down by more than two goals or more at half time. So Chelsea, I think, had got the breakthrough early on, they may well have won much more comfortably than they did. Eventually it was kind of mid-second half, so 60
minutes in the goal game.
62 minutes in when they scored. So Leicester by then had got a bit of confidence in how they were playing and the shape of the team, and the fact that the goalkeeper, with the exception of the brilliant penalty save, he hadn't had to make many saves in the game before the goal. So, you know, they did make it a bit difficult for themselves, Chelsea, but they don't look like a team that's playing with great confidence or great rhythm at the moment. They lost 2 of the last 3 games in the Premier League, and they look like they're going to continue to be in that scrap for the kind of 3rd, 4th and 5th place behind Liverpool and Arsenal. But it was an important win for them today, particularly with Manchester City losing yesterday to Forest. I think Chelsea have a very good chance. In fact, if it's going to be 5, I'd say they'll nearly certainly be in the top 5.
Yeah, like that run of...
I mean, in terms of qualification for Champions League.
For Champions League, yeah.
5, whether they finish ahead of City or Forest remains to be seen. Forest have the bit between their teeth, but I think it's hard to get away with the way Forest are playing for a whole season. I know they've got this far and probably on to match 27 or 28 and be in the position they're in. But, you know, if you're playing without a lot of possession every week and depending on the goals and the counter-attack, like Hudson-Odoi scored a goal yesterday, and Wood has scored in regular goals off the crosses. Alanga doing very well for them, Gibbs White. But every week, if you're kind of dependent on Milinkovic and Morello to be outstanding in the centre-back position, and the goalkeeper Sells to be standing, I think that may well catch up on them before the end of the season. I'm talking about Nottingham Forest. So from a Chelsea point of view, it's encouraging that Manchester City lost again yesterday. I think that's their 15th defeat in 30 games, which is extraordinary for Manchester City, how consistent, how brilliant they've been in recent seasons. But I think that was helpful from a Chelsea and Chelsea supporters' point of view, that was the result yesterday rather than Manchester City winning.
Just on Chelsea, and Cucurella, the goal scorer, I wanted to mention him because he's won European Championship as an international player now at Spain. He's one of those players who's been knocking around the Premier League for a while with Brighton before moving to Chelsea. He's one of those players I really like because he's got that, you know, he's a real tenacious, determined kind of a player. Like he's not exactly the tallest of players, as we know, but he seems to be a player who's made the most of what he has, and he's shown this season he can score goals. That was an absolutely cracker of a finish today from about 20 yards out, and a lot to like about him. And I suppose maybe a player that'd be inspirational to lads who are playing the game who maybe just short that bit on height.
Yeah, well, I think that's his 4th league goal of the season. I really liked him at Brighton. I thought he was exceptional, and you know, you've got to be brave to stick with that hairdo as well. You know, where there's any incident and the referee's in any doubt, he's going to pick you out very, very quickly. I used to say that to lads they used to go skinhead style when that became fashionable. I used to say, I wouldn't go with that. Let it grow. I said, whenever there's a row, you're certainly going to be the one that gets picked out. When Cucurella's case, it's do fellas pull his hair or not when he's in around the goal mouth in situations. But in all seriousness, he's become a very, very good player, and you know, to get picked from the Spanish national team and be part of that Euro winning team was brilliant for him, because before his emergence at Brighton he wasn't in the picture at all. He's done well at Chelsea, spent an awful lot of money on him. He wasn't a regular in the beginning at Chelsea, he was in and out, but I think he's established himself this year as being the one for that left back position. They've had a lot of very good players at Chelsea for that position, but I think he's established himself as the number one, and he's done very well. He did take the goal, took something special today to kind of get them going, because Sancho and Palmer, Neto, they were all a little bit off today, and Kunku didn't look like he was going to score. Had a couple of chances in the first half, opportunities to head balls into the net, and he headed them wide. Wasn't looking particularly comfortable. Palmer seemed to drift out of the game after missing the penalty kick. So fair play to Cucurella. He was strong, he was overlapping. Very little ball on his side in the first half. It was all down the right hand side of the pitch where Sancho was. Neto going out and doubling up over on that side, for finally getting forward at times. But Cucurella made the impact that was desired from the Chelsea point of view, and took the goal very well. Brilliant goal.
Just finally on Chelsea, excuse me, a bit of frog in my throat. With Chelsea, like, every time you watch them, you're kind of looking at the team and thinking, unlike the great teams, like, and even the two teams that are fighting out at the top of the table, Liverpool and Arsenal, every player you would look out there and you're saying they're all putting in a good performance today, whether it be Liverpool or Arsenal, when they're playing at their best. Chelsea, they just don't seem to have a full team of really good players that perform week in, week out. So the fact, the fact they are where they are now, competing for Champions League football, does that all go back to how good a coach Enzo Maresca is, that he's making the best of what he has here with not a really great bunch of players?
Well, I tell you what, if you spend about £1 billion on players, it gives you a better chance of being well up the table than it does the clubs who are maybe buying players for 10 million, 20 million. I mean, they'd be buying players for 120 million, Stephen. So I wouldn't be kind of giving the manager great, credit for the fact that they're fifth in the table at the moment. I think Maresca was handed a group of players. I mean, you look at them, they bought Leicester's best player, Dewsbury Hall, and he sometimes not in the squad. He rarely gets a game when they're picking their best 11. So that shows you the strength of the buying power that they had. Casado, another one in the middle of the pitch, costing over 100 million. And the likes of Jackson, Madueke, Mudryk, all bought for huge sums of money. The common theme with those players is the majority of them are under 24, under 25. They're young players, and they're not as confident as maybe they looked before Chelsea bought them, because when they were playing in various other teams, they were surrounded maybe by more experienced players, and they were able to rely on the experience of the other players to allow them to do their stuff. They're mostly flashy attacking players or solid midfield players like Casado and Fernandes. Some of the younger players in defensive position looked very good in their previous clubs as well, but they were generally playing with other players who were more experienced than them. Whereas you look at the Chelsea of the team, the balance of the team to me is very youthful, but not the experience that, say, Thiago would have given them in the centre-half position in the past, and maybe a more experienced player in the centre midfield. Those two have developed, but they're not the two best central midfield players in the league by any means, having spent almost $250 million on the two of them. The front players have been a disappointment, you would say. Madueke, has he scored enough goals? Has Mudryk done his stuff consistently before he is suspended? So many of them, Sancho in and out, does all right, doing better than he did for Manchester United. Probably not as good as he was doing at Dortmund. Neto never was a prolific goal scorer, but a very good player. Now he's centre forward for Chelsea. He's not scoring goals consistently. I think he's on 3 goals for Chelsea this season. Now he's been in and out of the team. He's had injuries as well. So you look at them, there's a lot of fellas who have still a bit to prove, but I wouldn't be giving the manager, I give the manager credit for the fact he was throwing a heap of players who would have all expected that they'd be in the team or very close to the team, and he had to make decisions about we're not going to keep him. Maybe we're going to sideline him. Maybe we'll sell him. And he kind of got a bit of consistency out of the selection in the early part of the season. It's drifted off a bit as the season's gone on, and but you know, I think what Chelsea need to do is leave it to him. Go on his recommendations on the sort of players. I said during the commentary, they have a lot of heads around the place. They have a heads of this department and a head of that and head of the other. A lot of heads, but not an awful lot of sensible heads, I'd say. I think they should listen to the football manager who might guide them and say, look, I need an out-and-out centre forward. I need another player for a centre midfield position. I need an experienced centre half. And go with that. And stick with the squad and stick with the manager rather than the chopping and changing that they've gone on with over the last few years. I mean, they had a manager that was good enough to win the Champions League for them, and they got rid of him. And they had Pochettino, who was a very good manager. They had Potter, who done a good job at Brighton, and they paid a fortune to get him get him in. Frank Lampard did a bit as well. But you know, they've got a good manager who did a great job at Leicester, who knows the game, who seems a hardy boy and a bit ruthless in his own way. Let him at it and stick with it, and then they might get back to the level they were at when they won the Champions League. But you know, at the moment they're a bit short of that. They lack the consistency of that team and the clarity of thought that Tuchel brought to the team when he was there, and the patterns of play that were produced the performance that was to beat Manchester City, who were the out-and-out favourites for that final when they won it. So to get back to there, stick with the manager, make some sensible, steady decisions on recruitment, and let them at it. And I think they can possibly get back to the level they were at in 2021.
I want to ask you about Jacob Ryan just quickly. Leicester City, do you give them any chance of staying up based on what we've seen? A couple of games that we've done of Leicester City. 6 points off and now away from Wolves now.
I don't give them. I think that's 12 defeats in the last 13 games in the league. So to beat Spurs away about, I think at the end of January, a game that we covered. But you know, 12 defeats in 13 games. Like, you get a few draws along the way, it gives you a bit of hope. But stuck on 17 points now. Like, the hope is that Wolves collapse, but they don't look like collapse. And Wolves.
Vitor Pereira's actually done a decent job, hasn't he, since he's come in there? I think at Wolves.
And like they look at a hard working, solid side. Losing the player who got put off, the goal scorer last week, Cunha, of course, who's been their outstanding player. That's a bit of a blow to them. But I think they have enough quality around the pitch to continue to keep scrapping points. And I think, I mean, they look the only one that are likely to fall into that, you know, to fall into bottom three. As it stands at the moment, Southampton, you know, they have no chance with 8 or 9 points. They have, so I don't see an awful lot of hope for Leicester. I think they'll be back down. There hasn't been much investment in the team this season. I think they'll be back down again in the Championship next year.
Just finally then, the man we saw playing against Wolves last night, and maybe a man you might be fighting with for a place in the starting Ireland team. Matt Doherty was on the opposite side. We know Hamer Hallgrimsson was there last night with John O'Shea watching that match, Wolves against Everton. Jacob Ryan, he's come in under David Moyes. He wasn't being played by Sean Dyche. He's played in a very unnatural position to him. He's a centre-back by trade. He's been playing in the right-back position from the games I've seen. I've watched a good bit of Everton since Moyes took over. I think he's done really, really well, considering it's not his natural position. He looks very... he looks like the kind of player who doesn't need... He looks just very suited to Premier League football. He doesn't look out of his depth in any way, which is something else for a young player of his age. What do you think when Ireland play this game against Bulgaria at the end of the month? Does Hamer Hallgrimsson try and get him into the team somehow, or do you go with the tried and trusted like Darragh O'Shea and Nathan Collins and maybe leave O'Brien on the bench?
Well, I think he's done enough in his performances for Everton to get a start. I mean, if Seamus Coleman was playing right back for Everton, Seamus Coleman would definitely be in the starting team against Bulgaria. But we don't know what to expect. with Heimer at this stage. He's been going through a process where it's been a bit experimental stuff. I think since he's got the job, he didn't know the players well when he got into the job. It seemed like his concentration on Jamaican thing didn't give him time to weigh up the players before he came in. So he's dependent on John O'Shea's knowledge and Paddy McCarthy in the early stages, and too much time has been wasted on that. And then, like, if you save the right back position, we've had, Seamus has played there, Matt Doherty has played there, and Andrew Festy has played there, and Andrew Bamadelli has played there, and Luke was dropped out of the squad altogether. Jake was dropped out of the squad because he wasn't playing at Everton. But now he's playing at Everton. We don't have players playing. He's been good enough. David Moyes is a fussy fella about who he picks. He likes defenders to be able to defend, and that's what we're seeing with him at the moment. He's defending the right back position, but we've also seen a bit of him getting forward. He looks very comfortable for a big, tall centre half lad playing the right back position. I have to say, when I was around the Irish squad last year for a while, and this time last year, I was very impressed with him, and he was unlucky not to get a go in either the first couple of games. He was very impressive in the training. His concentration level and what was going on was very good. He did whatever he was asked to do, and I would think that he has done himself a huge favour in terms of. But look, it was about getting a chance. He'd been so impressive at Lyon. Scored a few goals as well as playing centre half, helping to get them waiting the bottom of the table up to a European qualification place. He did exceptionally well. Everton bought him. You kind of wondered why Everton bought him. And surely Sean Dyche had some input into that. They spent whatever it was 15 million to get him, and then they don't play
20
him.
actually.
They don't play him at all. So yeah, I think he'd be in the squad. And I think there's a fair chance he'll get a go. It depends who else is fit and available, and what system and what shape Heimer decides to play in the game with Bulgaria. But how many players have we got playing regular in the Premier League at the moment? I think Matt Doherty has got himself back into the Wolves team. Outside of that, is there anyone else playing on a regular basis? It's hard.
Slim pickings.
Yes.
Yeah, Evan Ferguson's getting a few look-ins at substitute for West Ham, but
we're only scraping in. So I think he.
Darrell O'Shea at Ipswich Town.
Obviously, Darrell O'Shea and Nathan Collins, who, I'd get him into the team. He's a threat, but he's good in one box, defensive box, which is the main thing. But he's a real threat in the other box as well. If he starts, if you got Nathan Collins in the team as well with him, you've got something going on at the other end of the pitch.
Great stuff, Brian. And that, folks, is the last time me and Brian will speak to each other until next Sunday, because, of course, Bohemians go away to St. Patrick's Athletic this Friday. So it's been nice having a friendly chat, Brian, before Friday. If you're
strapping for the ticket, you can give me a ring if things are as bad as they sometimes are now for getting into League of Ireland games. Well, if your journalist hat on, you might get in.
I might have to do that, Brian. Thanks a million.